Good day, everyone. We are the Group 3, and today we will discuss the Land Reform Act of 1955, or the Republic Act number 1400. So each member of our group prepared a part of discussion indicating the introduction of the Land Reform Act until the resale of lands purchased or expropriated subject to condition. We hope you'll listen attentively and learn something new from our presentation.
So what is Land Reform Act of 1955? So the Land Reform Act of 1955, also known as the Republic Act 1400, was enacted on September 9, 1955 by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. It was a landmark legislation that aimed to promote social justice and agricultural productivity in the Philippines. This act also sought to regulate the tenancy relationship between the landlords and the tenants o yung may-ari ng lupa at yung nangungupahan. So this act also provides financial support to farmers to prevent inequality and also to avoid violation with regards in the land ownership. So, to implement the Land Reform Act effectively, the Land Tenure Administration or LTA was created. So, the LTA is comprised by chairman and two members appointed by the president. And this LTA is responsible for acquisition and distribution of agricultural lands, the one that manage lands awarded to farmers' beneficiaries, and provide support services to farmers. So basically, the LTA yung responsible to study or mag-alam sa mga tenure issues like issues with leasehold versus freehold ownership, protection from arbitrary eviction or displacement. And lastly, the Land Tenure Administration is enacted to monitor and evaluate the land reform programs.
Next, let's talk about the issuance of negotiable land certificates and the land subject to purchase. Negotiable certificates are issued by the President, but only when requested by the LTA or the Land Tenure Administration. These certificates are usually worth 1,000 pesos or in higher amounts like 2,000 or more, and they can be paid to the bearer at the central bank. Now, these land certificates have many uses. They can be used to pay for agricultural lands from the government, to buy shares in government-owned corporations, to pay taxes or debts to the government, and even as surety or performance bonds, kind of like guarantee. Lastly, for the land subjects to purchase, the LTA can negotiate to buy private agricultural lands but only if the majority of the tenants agree and file a petition. This rule is based on Section 11 of the Act.
So now we discuss about the action on the petition, which is the Section 12. So upon receiving a petition, the LTA must take the following actions: initial determination, investigation and technical surveys, and final negotiation. An initial determination, within 30 days, the LTA must determine the suitability of the land for purchase based on the information in the petition, notify the petitioners and landowner, and set a date for a preliminary negotiation. For example, let's say a group of farmers in the Philippines wants to buy a piece of land from a private owner. Ang gagawin ng farmers ay magsasubmit sila ng petition sa LTA para sa pagbili ng lupa. Ang sunod naman na gagawin ng LTA ay i-review nila ang petition and determines that the land is suitable for purchase. Pagkatapos nilang i-review ang petition and ma-determine kung pwede bang mabili ang lupa, the LTA take an action to notify the farmers and the landowners about the decision and schedules of preliminary negotiation meeting. So now, the second is the investigation and technical survey. So within 60 days of the preliminary negotiation, the LTA must conduct investigations and technical surveys to determine the title to the land and its real value. This includes considering the prevailing prices of similar lands in the area, soil condition, topography, and climate hazards, actual production, accessibility, and improvements. For example, let's say that the land in agricultural land in a rural area, the LTA's investigation and technical survey might reveal the recent sales data is 500 per square meter. It is based on the 5 recent sales of similar lands in the same area. And the land characteristic have a suitable for rice farming, good soil quality, and favorable climate. For example, the current production is 100,000 per year. That 100,000 per year, it is based on the average annual yield in market price. The accessibility of the land is nearby national highway and public transportation. And the improvements of the land is the irrigation system and the farmhouse. So, based on these factors, the LTA determines the land's real value to be 450 pesos per square meter. So, this translates to a total land value of 4.5 million. So, paano ba nakuha ang 4.5? So, 1 hectare times 10,000 square meters times 450 per square meters, it is equal to 4.5 million. So, the LTA's evaluation provides a basis for the final negotiation between the landowners and the farmers. So, the next na gagawin is the final negotiation na. So, the LTA must set the date for the final negotiation within 90 days of the preliminary negotiation. So, the LTA sets a date for the final negotiation with the landowner and the farmer. And the both parties discuss and agree on the purchase price based on the LTA's valuation. If both parties agree, they finalize the sale and transfer the ownership. So, yan.
Payment under Section 14, the law states that in purchasing or buying an agricultural land, the government may pay the landowner either fully in land certificate, the full amount of the land, or legal tender, half cash and half land certificate. However, the amount to be paid in the legal tender should not exceed 50% of the total price. Alternative payment, if the landowner agrees and the government approve, the payment may also made through barter or exchange with government-owned land, like residential, commercial, and industrial lands.
Expropriation of private agricultural lands. This means the government. Should the Landowner Administration or LTA, they can take private farmlands to distribute them to farmers, but only under certain conditions and with fair payment to the owner. Landowner refuses to sell after LTA efforts. This happens when the landowner does not want to sell their land, even after the LTA has tried many times to negotiate with them. In that case, the LTA can start expropriation proceedings, meaning the land can be taken legally for public use. Landowner willing to sell but disagrees on price or payment method. This means the landowner is open to selling, but they and the LTA cannot agree on how much the land is worth or how it should be paid. Because of that disagreement, the LTA can also proceed with the expropriation so the land can still be used for land reform or public benefit. The next is possession of the land and its procedure. Once the LTA starts the expropriation case, they are allowed to take control of their land right away, but there are rules to make sure it's fair to the landowner. After expropriation suit, administration can take immediate possession. This means that after filing the case in court, the LTA can immediately take over the land, even while the case is still being processed. Requires deposit with the court. Before taking control, LTL must deposit money
and the court as proof that they will pay the landowner fairly. Deposit amount based on provisional land value. The court decides a temporary or estimated value of the land, called the provisional value, and the LTA must deposit that same amount. This ensures the landowner will still be compensated while the final price is being decided.
So as for now, I will be discuss the prohibition against alienation. The first one, we have the landowner cannot alienate land after petition filing. So it means that after a petition is filed under the Act, the landowner can sell, give away, or transfer land. For example, if a farmer files a petition for land rights, then they can sell the land to someone else afterward. The second one, we have cannot enter contracts to defeat the Act. It means that the landowners can't make agreements that would go against the Act's goals. Example for this is a landowner can't lease the land long term or make a forged papers that indicates that that property was already owned by someone or they sell it to someone so that it was not under his or her name anymore, just to bypass the rules or so that the government won't take away the property from them. The third one is we have no ejectment proceedings against tenants during the process. So it means that the tenants can be evicted while the petition is happening. For example, if a tenant is farming the land and the owner files a petition, the tenant can't be kicked out until the process is resolved. Resale conditions. The first one we have applies to lands acquired and subdivided under the Act. These rules apply to lands that were gotten and divided according to the Act. Example, if a big piece of land was bought and split into smaller plots under the Act, these rules may apply. The second one we have must be annotated on torrent's title. So the land conditions must be noted on the land's official title. Example, when you check the land title, you'll see notes about these resale conditions. The third one, we have land cannot be subdivided, sold, or transferred without administration consent. The land can't be split, sold, or give away without permission. For example, if you want to sell a part of the land, you need approval from the administration. The last one, we have resale restricted to qualified farmers or tenants or government banking institutions. So it means that you can only sell to certain qualified people or entities. Example for this is if you want to sell, you can't sell to a qualified farmers or a government bank, but not just to anyone. And overall, the Land Reform Act in the Philippines aims to address social and economic inequalities in the agricultural sector by redistributing land to landless farmers and promoting more efficient use of land resources.